Garry, you actually called it ahead of time that Russia was going to hit Ukraine, Crimea, basically Ukraine. Where, if you were a betting person now, where do you think Russia possibly might hit underneath Putin again? Since, as you know, Russia underneath Putin is only stable as long as it expands.
Yes, I predicted that Putin's Russia, though at that time Putin technically was not in the driving seat, but we all knew, that just had his puppet there for years. So in August 2008, in one of my editorials in the Wall Street Journal, I wrote, after Republic of Georgia was attacked, that next would be Ukraine, Russian anglers in Ukraine.
But what made you think Ukraine? CIA didn't see it coming? None of the intelligence services over the world. Only person, basically, you were one and only that saw it.
Look, I don't want to call myself a Nostradamus. I didn't have special talents. I didn't have a crystal ball, but I could look at the map. And I could read the history books. And I knew that it was not if Putin would attack, it's when and where. And then you look at the map and understand that next would be Ukraine. Because Vladimir Putin made many statements, by the way, as dictators in the past. One of our latest article was called, "You have to trust dictators." Because every time you go back to Hitler's time, they actually said what they would do, and it was all disregarded, saying, no, it's just, it's for political convenience, they will never do that.
Domestic consumption.
Trust them, they will do that. So and with Putin, just follow, might as well, but follow his words. This is the man who, still being prime minister in just last year of Yeltsin, meeting his former colleagues at the KGB headquarters on the bank, that said that no former KGB, once KGB, always KGB. Quote unquote. This is the man who said the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. This is the man who, as president of Russia, had restored Soviet anthem as one of his first acts in the office. So that's enough to you to understand what he could do if given the chance. And this is the man who in 2007 in Munich at the Security Conference basically told bluntly to Bush, 43, Blair, whoever was there from the free world, that Russia was on the way of restoring its influence in what's so-called near abroad, former Soviet Union. He said it. They said, it's just all domestic consumption. So I knew Ukraine would be next because, again, from the history, that first dictator was looking for friends, but then he would need enemies. Because this is the only way to justify his enemy staying power. The economy in Russia today is crippled. It will never recover. Oil will never go back to $100 plus a barrel, and Putin knows it. All he can sell to the Russian public is Russia as the besieged fortress, and he, Vladimir Putin, as a white knight, the only defender of Mother Russia against world's evil. So he needs enemies, and America's bashing is on Russian television. It's for 24/7 for probably the last 10 years, maybe less. But it's while Obama was trying to to find this reset button, this propaganda, anti-American propaganda, was getting just tougher, stronger, nastier. I know today that it's not if Putin does something, it's when. And he always looks at the map and he knows all he needs is chaos.
What would you say next for him?
No, but we look at the history. So he attacked Ukraine. He believed he could actually take much bigger portion of Ukraine. So Crimea was the first step, and then he talked about Nova Russia, which included 10 Ukrainian regions. And if you hear what he said, you just follow what he said in the spring 2014, and it could remind you of the history of the 20th century. Even I had it's the very sad joke on my Twitter saying, while writing his speeches, his speechwriters had to be very careful not to mix motherland and fatherland while translating from German. Because it was all about divided people, restoring our greatness. We heard it. But he failed. And it was a big failure because it was a wrong assumption. He believed that ethnic Russians in Ukraine would be embracing invading troops. Contrary to his expectations, overwhelming majority of ethnic Russians in Ukraine decided to fight against the invasion. So that's why he failed. Instead of having 10 regions as he thought, he got half of the 2. And of course Crimea. And then he looked at the map again, and he saw that he would need something to bring the West to the bargaining table, because he was quite, the Western reaction to Crimea annexation and war against Ukraine was, I always said it was much less than I wanted, but much more than Putin expected. And Putin decided to find something else where he could cause problems and to make an exchange. Syria. By the way, the state was already prepared with this infamous red line that Obama could cross, and that was a clear message that they could do whatever. So Putin ended up in Syria, decimating Syria, carpet bombing Aleppo. I mean, just the war crimes were all over the place. He thought it could be, a good moment just to bring America back to negotiating table. He failed. And then we saw attacks on Western democracy in Europe and of course in this country. And again, it's the problem. It was totally disregarded by majority.
But why?
No, because people didn't want to hear it. In 2015 in May, I was at Bill Maher's show, and I tried to talk about it. Actually, it was just before my book Winter is Coming about Putin and enemies of the free world was released. And he was very dismissive. And he ended up saying, "Wake me up when he takes over Poland." Wow. I said, okay, yes, we heard it 8 years ago, and we all knew the outcome. And of course, after the elections in 2016, Bill Maher has changed his views. He was very aggressive, going after Putin, blaming him for interference, stealing votes in Wisconsin, in Michigan, and I couldn't help but just teasing him and just put a Twitter saying it seemed that Putin decided to skip over Poland and went straight to Wisconsin. And he was always looking for an opportunity to see chaos. And now we know, I don't have to tell you the address. It's called North Korea. It just, I think some people are insane suggesting that a rich country with no technology, with no science, in less than 2 years, walked the road that would take 10 years for a developed country, creating H-bomb and a missile technology that could reach the United States. Of course it was transferred, and guess who could do that? So, again, that's another game. And Putin suddenly shows up as a peacemaker. Maybe we can solve the problem, I can help you as I helped you with Assad and with his chemicals. So, problems will be all over the place, but we should remember, he's a KGB guy. It's not a military dictator. He's always cautious in making his steps. So that's why I said most likely he would never cross NATO borders. Because he would love to do something in Estonia or Latvia.
So you don't think he hits any of the Baltics?
Look, it's very simple. Now, hitting the Baltics means currently, first of all, there's no surprise. They already they prepared for hybrid wars. It's not only just 3 Baltics, you have Poland behind them. So he'll be dealing with nations that are ready to defend themselves. You have, of course, Russian enclaves in Estonia and Latvia, but I don't think you find many people who are willing to fight there. And moreover, even if you have some of them, and you have Russian, what they call polite green man, just going across the border, a few hundred here and there, causing trouble, they will have to face Estonian army, police, that's about 15,000 strong. It's about 60,000 they can mobilize, which means you'll have to bring full invasion force. And by the way, you already have a few hundred American troops there. Now, shooting an American soldier, I don't think any Russian general will be crazy enough, because that's another story. So that's why I said at the time of Crimea, the best America could do is just to bring, as they did now, some of the warships with a friendly visit. You don't have to do anything, just stay there, 10 miles away just from the action, just for Russian admirals to see them just in binoculars. So just to understand that it's like a Cold War. It's a game. It's a psychological game. So I think Baltic's just out of question. So he tried to change the outcome of elections. In some countries he succeeded with Brexit, Italian referendum, elections in Moldova, in Bulgaria, and of course here in America, which I think backfired. Because now suddenly everybody's paying attention. Now people just realize that it could be dangerous. I think that he will be just looking for opportunities to cause more problems in places like North Korea. So that's a big game, by the way, because it's nuclear brinkmanship, and Kim Jong-un knows Putin is behind him, and they all know that Assad used chemicals and survived, and so we'll see what happens. And for me, that's the most dangerous place. Otherwise, his ability to cause damage is limited, because Europe is mobilized, and America is, it's just also is not as inactive as a few years ago.
Yeah, only just because it's something that, trying to create kind of a narrative with Gary's insights over the years under this history as things keep happening. It's kind of depressing in the sort of like people keep saying, oh, Gary, now we get it every day. Oh, you were right. Like this whole thing we're talking about, we were joking out upstairs earlier about how we want the New York Times to re-review, Winter is Coming now 2 years later, because they really downplayed, it's fear-mongering, Putin's not really going to threat, spend all this time defending, Obama's foreign policy. And now we're kind of like, 2 years later, we're like, would you like to take another look at that, just to see how that aged? But for me, working on these editorials is kind of a series, not of trying to present something forward-looking and pointing out the tactics that Putin uses as far as being a KGB guy, as he says, and meeting big enemies. But there's a danger in having big enemies, is that a big enemy could crush you. If he kills an American soldier, or if he really ticks off, Merkel. That's why we're not seeing a lot of interference in the German election. That's a big one, that she could really hurt him. And so, what does he do then? But he still needs to say the United States is a rival, still needs that propaganda. So he goes around on the edges, always on the edges. Ukraine, border of NATO. Syria, border of NATO, Turkey. Okay, always places. Are the Americans really going to be keen to go send soldiers, to send forces to the border of NATO? They're not even sure they want to do it for NATO. I mean, Trump's been all this time talking about, pay their dues or something, like it's some sort of strange, like club, and instead of a treaty alliance that is signed. And, but Putin is very good at that. Again, reading people, being a poker player, saying, are the Americans really going to send, troops to fight for Assad, or against Assad, to Syria, and then Turkey. He's got Erdogan in Turkey. Birds of a feather, but Turkey's a NATO country, and now they're buying weapon systems from Russia. This is starting to get really complicated, and that's where Putin is very good, and he's sort of quick, I'm over here, I'm over here, I'm over here. He can move very quickly. He doesn't have to worry about Congress, doesn't have to worry about budget appropriations, doesn't have to worry about a hostile media, because amazingly, he's very popular in the Russian media. It's just tremendous, yeah. So we always talk about the polls, It's like the Putin's popularity is something, has been kind of our mainstay thing for what now, 12 years, about polling, having accurate polls in a dictatorship.
Yeah, it's about addition restaurant.
Yeah, that was one of the metaphors we tried to come up with as far as.
What was the metaphor? Yeah.
There's only one restaurant in town and only serves one thing. Is it popular? It's like, if you try to open another restaurant, it gets burned down.